nor the
God
choice
damn
in
it.
favor of the status quo.
So fucking stupid.
They are that stupid.
I don't know how that fucking happened.
Want a bet? Lynn, the only difference between the Ducal Council, or the Cornet Council for that matter,
Yeah, it worked.
is that the shoemakers will probably have a better organization and less political considerations on their side.
Rubber band
Other
much?
than that, you have the same issues you have in any organization. Everyone trying to protect their piece of the pie at the expense of everyone else. So it all comes back to pie, I said sagely. Pay attention, she demanded. The Ducal Council will hem and haw, while the local and regional lords in the west get slaughtered, as they try to take on the goblins piecemeal. By the time the
So
hordes
basically it
arrest
just
their own,
falls.
they will slowly start realizing that they are in trouble, mostly because their tax revenues are down over last year. Then they will start to creak into action, but not very efficiently. They will argue and debate and compromise for political.
And it doesn't climb,
when by all rights they should
but it will
get to business. Else
get onto stuff.
Duchies next year. That seems overly pessimistic, I noted. It's overly realistic, actually.
And then jump
this is simple.
again.
If you had any familiarity with Ramiran politics, okay. For the sake of argument, let's say you are.
Yeah.
And the Dukes.
And look at how much stamina it uses while you're on it.
What the hell's
While you're hanging on things, it uses stamina like a fucking
First the
lot.
Duke of Alsham, then the entire Coronet Council, or better yet, the Duke of Castle, Rard. Because I'm so damn cute and persuasive. No, because you are in charge of the most powerful magical strike team ever assembled, and Rard is looking to expand his influence beyond Castle. His wife is the sister of Duke Glendine, and they both want more power. By all accounts, they are utter opportunists. That gives you a certain degree of leverage. You have the only stone that can break the dead god's influence over other captured shards. That gives you a unique power. How many stones do you have left, unclaimed? About 9, I admitted. And those give you significantly more leverage. Each one is worth about a barony, in mundane terms. You'll give those stones to Magi who can make a difference, won't you? She said. A statement, not a question. I answered anyway. Well, yeah, I suppose. I'm sure the Duke can find... Screw the Duke, she said bitterly. You don't understand how power works. Political power. The Duke sets policies. He approves laws. He sets style. He hires other people to enforce his decisions. He keeps the realm safe. That is the sum total of his power. To set policy, he listens to advisors. He must have laws proposed if he is to approve them. He needs direction before he can appoint the proper people to execute them. That includes the court wizard and all the other ducal posts. And that means he needs wise counsel. And in this situation, you are surely the wisest counsel he can hope to hear from. So, we go forth boldly and demand an audience.
I got these fucking bitches. 5 fucking high level fucking cunts that just want to get fucked.
Tits, you're dim. Every single duchy will have to send
They just want fucking to get fucked.
You name it, we'll need it. This is going to be a long war. That's the best case. Worst case, Alshar is Sharul's new summer home, and the eastern duchies get to fight against him at half strength, and lose. Pen, even at full strength, will probably lose. She sang. I know, but we have to try, and you're the only man who can do it. What about Turner? I protested. Or you, for that matter. We've all pledged to follow you. You didn't what? Who did? Follow who? When? Sorry you didn't hear the announcement, she said dryly. We had a meeting while you were sleeping the night before last. Every one of us knows what is going to happen. Apparently we're smarter than you. And after all the discussion, it was decided that our best hope, the 5 duchies' best hope, lay in getting behind a single leader and pushing him into a position of power. How the hells did you manage that? I asked. They can't agree which shade of blue the sky is. Let's just say It's because I'm so damn cute and persuasive. And leave it at that. Penny, I said warningly. Calm yourself. I didn't need to do much persuading. We all have a good handle on the situation. It was unanimous. In fact, they swore an oath. Great. Now we have oaths. What kind of oath? Oh, one I stole from Imperial times. It's based on the oath that subordinate mage lords swore to the Archmage. So, spellmonger to Archmage. And here I was, trying not to be ambitious. Based on. And, well, yes. But they are just as concerned with the situation as I. And despite all of the wonders of witchstones, they are scared. Scared of the power that they hold in their hands. And scared of the potential temporal power it suddenly implies. Not to mention scared of that nasty green ball full of undead goblin and what it portends. I'm sure they'll work through it. Why are you being so difficult, Min? I'm serious. They don't want to go back and get shuffled off to a bunch of meaningless skirmishes. Nor do they want to go to war with the Senslet. They have power, they realize, but it becomes greatest when they act as a united force. And they have no idea what to do with that power once it is realized. They need someone to make policy. They're bright. They'll think of something, I assured. It's not going to work that way, Min, she warned. Then she bit her lip. That's a well-known danger sign with Penny. I've been talking to the others. They want to follow. I stopped eating. What did you say? They want you to lead them. In battle. Against the dead god. So this is what Erionite poisoning is like, I observed airily. The bad craziness sets in. Pen, what happened during the siege? It was fun, but it's over. We're rescued. Or something. No one's trying to kill us at the moment.
There we go.
I don't need to leave. I can't leave.
Look at that.
I don't have any official standing. Anyway,
That's it. That's where your Quetzal goes.
But you prefer the life of a simple spellmonger. I know. That's what I'm getting at, Min. You won't be able to be a simple spellmonger anymore. We'll see what happens after the and before that, the Coronet Council will be
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
They're going to need war magic, especially and specifically us. But what happens if we just live?
He looks like he's just sitting there for fucking
what happens when the Dutch
shits and gigs. Shits. Hey. Hey. Stop.
Everyone to death. The peasants you think are so cute will get screwed. As do the war magi you've been so valiantly leading.
Ow.
They get drafted or shafted, and they don't like either choice. So they want you to keep doing what you did in Bovon. Those were special rules, true, but they worked. They want you to keep the conscience of the stones and control their distribution and use. It's the only way they can trust each other with them. If you have a claim that they all would enforce, then no one person can try to stir up trouble without bringing the wrath of the whole group down on them. That was the way the magocracy was supposed to work. They won't listen to me, I protested, alarmed at what she said. They all agreed to the oath, that the stones are yours, and they are forfeit on your word. When we go before the Ducal Council and the Coronet Council, they want you to speak on their behalf, work in their interest. They want you to be their leader, their lord, their captain. Now, you can stand around and wait to get drafted again, or we can be proactive and work to set this up the way we want it to go. We. Us war magi, she explained. Oh, not me, not really. I'm a theorist and thaumaturge, not a war mage. But I have a vested interest in this as well, and I have my jobs to do. Everyone does. They just don't know it yet. It's our job to convince them. Your job. But I'll support you with that, and we'll all back you. We pledge to put ourselves under your command, offer you counsel, obey your orders, and give our lives in your service, over oaths like those sworn to any other lord. Lord, now, that's great. Any thoughts to robes and silly hats? That's still inconvenient. Seriously, Min, we have to do this. Penny, we don't have to do a damn thing, I insisted. Much less fight this war. I know I don't want to. And when did the gods start paying attention to what you wanted, Master Spellmonger? Point taken. Okay. I appreciate the vote of confidence, but find another lackey. I've got better things to do. Better than saving the 5 duchies. In point of fact, yes. Like what? Like raising my kid in peace, and not leaving he or she an orphan. You don't have any... She stopped, and her eyes got wide. Oh, Min, she gasped. You? And, Alia, I offered. Yes. Just as I was explaining to her why it was necessary to have long, passionate sex with my ex-girlfriend when she told me. I checked. She's pregnant. And you're sure it's yours? She asked suspiciously. Anyone else and I would have blasted...
Yeah, so do I. It's called a Quetzal.
Alia has been a widow for
If I could park a gig up there, I would.
she's had relations with since her husband.
He's the cream of the crop.
I'm sure. It took a few moments.
Plus, I just don't know where else to put him.
There were a lot of them.
You got so much shit.
Those pretty eyes. I don't know what. Are you happy about this? She asked hesitantly. Actually, I admitted. I am.
Look at that little clusterfuck.
Busting out with pride.
Just clusterfuck of stuff.
Daddy duty, as it were.
You gotta figure out your stuff.
But I hear that will pass.
See, look at my area. My area, organized.
She had tears in her eyes.
Fucking organized. Ah!
Why didn't you tell me? I just did. Sooner. We were going to be dead, remember? And before that,
check out all my little fucking bitches that I've gone and got. I guess I should probably go look for more eggs.
I guess you did.
I need a fucking male, man. If I get any more females, I'm just gonna kill them.
I don't want him or her to grow up enthralled to the short and fuzzy set, but that doesn't mean Daddy has to go to the front lines. You won't be on the front lines, she said, shaking her head. You are too valuable. You'll be in charge, which means I'll be.
You can kill and skin stuff? How the fuck do you do any of that? Kill and skin a Therizino. Because I will let you kill and skin this Therizino right here. This one. Fucking kill it and skin it. How the fuck are you gonna do that? That sounds cool. Taxidermy shit.
I exploded. I'm nothing special. You're the Spellmonger, you idiot. You hung on at an undermanned castle against 20 times the odds with nothing but a piece of Irianite, guile, and some talented apprentices. Any one of us, she said, indicating all of the war magi in the party, would have packed it in early and buggered out. You persevered. You even won. Kind of, she admitted. Not getting killed is a victory, I asked, discouraged. Against the dead god? Hells, yes. Okay. I can see the point. But if I agree to do this, it has to be real. I'm leader, no one else. The moment you guys don't like what I'm doing, throw me out and let me go home. Those are my conditions. Done. Min, I don't think you have a clear idea what kind of hold you have over these people. Nonsense. Sure, the peasants thought I was great, but these are my professional peers, who all insist that you are the greatest among them. Deal with it.
There is no knife, my man.
Deal with it, she repeated. Look, there will be plenty of room for Alia and your kids in whatever gloomy old tower they give us. And wherever it will likely be safer than anywhere else. So just shut up and be our fearless leader for a change, will you? She asked, annoyed. Oh, all right, I muttered. Do I get to wear a silly hat? As silly as you need.
I passed it.
She agreed. You're the leader. Crap. I really was. This is the end of Book 1. But the story
Taxidermy
continues
tool.
with War Mage, Book 2 of the Spellmonger series. Keep listening after the credits for a free
Flint, stone, and wood.
You have been listening to Spellmonger, Book 1 of the Spellmonger series. Produced by Greg Lawrence. Executive producers James, Tom, and Greg Lawrence. Text copyright 2011 by Terry Mancorn. Production copyright 2017 by Podium Publishing. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. The Slaughter at Grimley Wood. Grimley Wood, late summer. I surveyed the battlefield at Grimley Wood from horseback, looking out over the heads of the formations of infantry and the clusters of light cavalry, hearing the sounds of 1,000 suits of armor rattle and hundreds of horses complaining about their burdens. I looked toward the distant line of the foe, barely visible in the mists and shadows that haunted this dour little land, and I had but one thought. I really had to pee. I should have gone earlier, I knew, but I was too worried about the battle to take the time. That was understandable. It was the first battle in which I was in command of the ducal forces, and I was as nervous as a virgin on her wedding night. I had gotten little sleep the night before, and when I was awakened by my trusty servant an hour before dawn to hear scouting reports, I was still too busy to tend to my personal needs, as messengers came and went and decisions had to be made. I'd managed to eat a couple of camp biscuits with a rasher of bacon, washed down with a big mug of wheat beer, but that was as much food as I'd managed, and now that beer was haunting me in an increasingly uncomfortable fashion. I should have gone before I donned my armor, because once you put it on, there's no easy way to pee without removing a good portion of it. I had even stopped when the last chain skirt was being strapped around my waist and almost went. But then Captain Rogo had come with important news about the scouts, and I postponed it again. By the time I mounted Traveller, I realized I was in dire straits. I should know better. I'm not just some petty lordling elevated to command through favoritism or accident of birth. I was a trained warrior, a master wizard, and a veteran war mage of the bloody Farisen campaign, not to mention a survivor of the hopeless siege of Beauval Vale. I knew I was risking certain distraction and possible illness, a condition the healers call belly rot. What happens when a man's intestines or bladder is full when he sustains a wound to the lower abdomen? One of the first things they teach you in basic infantry training, which, despite my magical profession I had been obliged to endure, is to lighten your load before you step onto the battlefield. This was a particularly important battlefield too, and a particularly important battle. It wasn't a decisive engagement, really, but a sustained skirmish, which we were almost certain.
Metal, stone, thatch, and
What happened on this
wood.
battlefield, and how it would
Metal,
set the
stone,
course
thatch,
for the
and
many,
wood.
many battles to come, I knew. This was the first time that the encroaching Govani were being faced with a foe who not only expected them, but who knew what they were dealing with.
Metal.
The lightning-fast campaign was but the opening salvo between two titanic powers.
Thatch, and
On our
wood.
side was the massed professional military aristocracy of the fine duchies, stout warriors with bright swords and snorting steeds, and the favor of the gods. Or so we told ourselves. On the other was the Govani horde of thousands. Hundreds of thousands, actually. Govani were known as the mountain folk in some places, Scrugs in others, but they were usually known as goblins. Govani was the name they called themselves. The average specimen stood 4 to 5 feet tall, covered in black hair, with a face like a terrier crossed with a pig. They're as smart as most human beings. They use iron and practice warfare. They have a tribal culture that sticks to the mountains or remote valleys. Ordinarily, Govani were peaceful, or at least not warlike. Their warrior societies spar with each other to solve intertribal disputes. A few tribes raid human settlements to steal chickens or a pig or a bushel of potatoes, but for close to 200 years even that was rare. Until now. Now they were led by a kind of super shaman.
That's a large platform.
Of a defiant shaman who led the last major war between my folk and theirs, to be more precise. His name had been Sherul, or Sheriu, or Sharul, or some variation when he was alive. Govani transliteration is a crude art at best. Their language and ours are both pretty inexact about such things, and records on both sides are woefully incomplete. We'll call him Shurul. 2 centuries before, he had led the last major organized resistance to human settlement of the northwest of the rustic duchy of Alshar, where it abutted the Minden range. He had lost several battles against the Alshari knights and their shining lances, and sued for peace. At a truce meeting between him and the knights, he had been betrayed and slain in the sacred valley of his people, so that we could settle their lands. To add insult to injury, they chopped off his head and put it on a pike, while they systematically cleared out the sacred valley of the goblins by slaughtering everyone in sight. Since then, the Gravani had been dispossessed from their sacred valley and their sacred caves, and Shurul wasn't very happy about that. Now he was just called the Old God, or the Great Ghost, by the goblins. We called him, more accurately, the Dead God, and he wasn't just undead, which would have been interesting enough, thaumaturgically speaking. He was also encased in a perfect sphere of a peculiar kind of green amber, known to scholars as Irianite. It's absolutely rare, a translucent stone that shimmers like an emerald in the sunlight, and is lighter in your hand than you'd expect. It's magically potent. Actually, that's an understatement. It's magically profound. A tiny shard a centimeter wide can give most magi almost unlimited power. I've got a perfect sphere of it 3 centimeters wide, which makes me an extremely formidable war mage. But Irianite not only animated Shurul's thoughts, the huge mass of the stuff encapsulated his entire brain, giving the dead god truly divine levels of magical power. How powerful? Just his existence is enough to threaten the nature of reality itself in his proximity. Using that power, he had secretly raised an army of almost 1 million Gavani back in the depths of the Minden Range, and then launched a genocidal war on us. I guess I shouldn't leave that part out. It's pretty important. It's why I was here, about to slaughter a bunch of hairy goblins at a misty, rocky little fief in northern Alshar called Grimly Wood. It was late summer, now almost autumn, and as I sat on my horse and tried to distract myself from my over-full bladder with reflections of my life and its purpose, I couldn't help but realize that it had been an eventful summer. Hells, it had been an eventful year. The previous autumn, I was a spellmonger in a quiet mountain village called Minden's Hall, in a peaceful little valley, stuffed full of happy peasants and contented cows, far to the west. I was doing a pretty good job of curing warts and casting love spells, and making hens lay more prodigiously, while trying to forget about my service in arms, when the dead god decided the time was right to launch his very inconvenient genocidal horde of goblins on an unsuspecting humanity, and he picked Minden's Hall for the honor of his first slaughter. And the first item on their agenda was the conquest of the blind valley of Boval Vale in which I was living. It had once belonged to them, had some deep religious significance to them, and was also the perfect staging area for a wider war against the scourge of humanity in the 5 duchies. Shurul wasn't just relying on his magical innate power and 500,000 goblins pouring in from secret mountain caverns to conquer us. He had also given to an elite corps of magic-using Gavani shamans shards of Irianite chipped from his sphere. Each one made the shaman the match of any war mage. Luckily, their skills were crude, but their enthusiasm and the sheer power of the stones left the control of Boval Vale never in doubt. The local lord, who had some inkling that his generously large castle would someday have to defend against vindictive goblins his ancestors had betrayed, conned me into staying to protect the villagers and defend his indefensible fief from the inevitable conquest. I fought like hell those few desperate weeks. I won my own little chunk of Irianite, endured a siege, and met some magical tree folk, non-humans like the Gavani. Unlike the Gavani, they generally don't want to kill us. Found a girlfriend, knocked her up, founded an elite unit of Irianite-augmented war magi, led numerous covert missions to harass our besiegers, led a peasant's revolt against the rightful lord of the Vale, and ended up saving almost everyone, using a powerful spell through a mystical tear in the fabric of the universe, fueled by a 4-hour-long session of magically powerful sex, with my ex-girlfriend. Of course, I couldn't escape through a portal that I was holding open. So I got stranded
That's as
at the
good as it
castle
gets.
with my war magi comrades and
My
only
placement
narrowly
sucks,
escaped
but
with my life. Mostly because the tree folk figured I needed to warn the five duchies about what we were about to get pounded with. And that's how I spent my summer. As I said, it was eventful. Issues, tits, I had to pee. Things had been almost calm since the great escape from Beauval Vale. No one tried to kill me. I just travelled along.
there we go. That's better.
After we war magi regrouped and celebrated the unlikely fact that we were still alive, we all agreed that the invasion deserved the utmost attention from those in power, and we needed to start pushing the Dukes of Alshar and nearby Castall to raise a defence of the realm. I split them up and sent them on various missions, and then I made my way back to where I had sent the rest of the villagers, the grounds of the magical school I and my ex-girlfriend had attended.
Whoa.
What a spell had done in the blink of an eye
Dermis?
had taken 2 weeks by horse. By the time I got there, the refugees
So do I have to
from
kill
Beauval
this
Vale had
thing
all been
first and then
relocated to
skin it,
peaceful
or do I
pastures
just
50
keep
miles
hacking at it with the
after
fucking
thoroughly
skinner?
debriefing my old masters at the academy, warning them of the imminent danger, and showing off my new witch stone. That's what the peasants call Irian. I had to spend another 7 days on a barge upriver to make a similar report to the authorities, namely His Grace, the Duke of Castall, who was spending his summer at his cool riverside northern palace.
Kill it, then skin it.
I arrived just in time to be summoned to a full ducal council to explain the situation to Duke Rard of Castall, who was suddenly coping with a full-blown invasion of his frontier when he had planned to be hawking.
Wait.
Duke
What?
Lenguin of Alshar, where Beauval Vale sent its tribute and pledged its fealty, had received 2 other Alshari war magi from my unit to warn him. Duke Lenguin, who was likewise in his summer palace of picturesque Verone, had a reputation as a connoisseur of fine wines, and had an excellent knowledge of hunting hawks, but he had never been to war. I was born in Castall myself, so I went to the Duke of Castall not only because Castall was the next duchy that would have to contend with the invasion, but because by all accounts, Rard IV was a wise, just, and
Yeah, I've got this. It's a
while his brother-in-law
attach this Dermis to attack Sturmy
That being
base.
said, it still took a while to convince Duke Rard and his ruling council that I knew what I was talking about, and even longer before he appreciated the magnitude of the threat, and even longer for him to grant the resources and troops necessary to face the threat. The dead god and his furry minions weren't just another goblin uprising you could throw some local knights at, after all. They were employing battlefield magics that no baronial court mage or common war magi could hope to counter. The duchy needed me, and my newly augmented war magi, they just had to see it.
Hell
They were
yeah.
reluctant, especially when I named my price. But in the end, they came around.
That's
After
fucking
over a
tight.
week of me playing at intrigue and court politics. Then there had been problems with the magical censor, and an meeting with the censor general, who wasn't at all happy about recent developments, and expressed that displeasure with a warrant for my head. But in the end, after many things were decided and many secrets were revealed, I prevailed. Now I had in my war chest a warrant and commission, naming me a special marshal of Castall, and another one from Alshar, and over 3,000 men to lead bravely into battle. I had been ordered to conduct an expeditionary raid into the vanguard of the invasion of northern Alshar to see if the Horde had any chance of being defeated. A force of 3,000 troops wasn't enough to even make a dent in the legions that were marauding.
That's the
across
one I
Alshar,
like. It coming to
but
get
that
you.
wasn't our purpose. I was here to make it look like Duke Rard of Castall.
That one or that one? I like that one.
Instead of sitting back and waiting to see if the incompetent Alshari could handle it alone. Lucky me. 3 weeks later,
Yeah,
here
I like
was,
that
on
one.
horseback in the field, bravely leading my men into battle, while trying hard not to think about how badly I had to poo. Our force
Yeah,
moved
that
out
one's
from our
sick.
staging area at the village of Plester. The last one.
He looks like a
Plester, and had
badass.
marched northwest as far and as fast as we could. We stuck to the Great Western Road at first, but soon after crossing the marker that delineated where Castall stopped and Alshar began, we moved off the road and headed out over country. The roads were getting too clogged with fleeing civilians anyway, and for lack of anything more productive to do, the Alshari Duke and Verone was drafting every man he could get his hands on. I badly wanted
Got
to
it.
avoid getting sucked into
Silly
another
string
round of
dermis.
politics, so we avoided
So you
an
can only
unpleasant
skin
diplomatic
one thing at a
trip and
time.
ranged northwest through the scenic Al-Shari wilderness. The further from the road we went, the more we saw signs of the invasion. Peasant refugees on the road or crossing fields, nervous merchants moving stock to more easterly locations, priests relocating to sister temples across the river. The local lordlings were shutting themselves in their castles and sending what men they could spare to Verona. I'm sure we looked like just another column of mercenaries. We had crossed through two little fiefs without incident, and as far as the tiny lordship known as Grimley Wood, comprised of about 20 square miles of scrub forest, discouraged fields and rocky hills in the bosom of the Wilderlands, before we encountered the first direct evidence of the invasion. Smoke on the horizon in 3 or 4 places. Soon after that, we had a couple of skirmishes between our scouts and theirs. I was pretty certain we'd hit the tip of the spear of their invasion, or one of them. The scant dispatches that had reached Wilderhall before I left indicated that there were at least 3, and possibly as many as 5, columns of goblins marching from Beauval now, each legion comprised of upward of 10,000. Each seemed to have a different task, but all were bent on looting, raiding, and killing along the way. Their stated aim was to kill every human in their path, men, women, and children. I tried not to dwell on that. Needing to pee helped. Grimley Wood was nearly deserted, because your average peasant has a lick of common sense and went elsewhere at the first sign of trouble. The decrepit Mottoned Bailey Castle of Grimley Wood, home and seat of Wilderlord House Grimley, the head of which, Sir Geston of Grimley, was still holding forth, because your average petty noble doesn't have a lick of common sense, was fortified and ready to receive our people if the battle turned into a rout. I didn't think that was a likely possibility. I had taken counsel the night before last, using my arcane powers to scout ahead and measure the strength of our foe. I had a pretty good idea of the enemy's composition. War magic is good for that. We were in luck, in that it seemed to be an outlier of a larger force. There were roughly 700 lightly armed goblins in the dense woods of Grimley Wood, more of a marauding mob than an infantry unit. They had found their way into the thickest part of the wood at dawn. It was a stand of trees too twisted to be timbered. They probably liked it, because it was dank and dark and foreboding, choked into shadow by neglect and overgrowth. It's not that they have bad taste. Goblins are nocturnal, and prefer such places to sleep during the heat of the bright day. Plus, they have the advantage of being largely cavalry-proof. Goblins don't ride horses, and horses don't like goblins. But I didn't let their defensive position worry me. If there was ever going to be an easy victory, it would be here. We had the advantage in almost every way. We couldn't lose. So the previous night, when I realized we could strike and be victorious, I called a quick council, hammered out a simple battle plan, ordered the men ready, the castle prepared, and certain magical defenses and preparations made. So here I was, ready to attack, and I really had to pee. Marshal Spellmonger, one of the mercenaries called to me, Ancient Father,
Head and shit.
correctly, from the Orphans Band of Light Infantry. A big
You can't really see any of my shit, though. It's always...
plate armor than a bowman's jack. He spoke in a wide Wilderlands drawl. Scouts report most of the furry bastards are in loose formation now, at the north end of the wood. Lots of spears. Some have hung
like
back
right here. Right here.
I nodded. Probably looted them
Whoa.
across Alsham, but I doubt they really know how to use them. Giovanni used javelins, not thrusting spears, and certainly not pikes. Behind and above them you can expect the shaman and chief, where they can...
Tyrone, why are you following me?
I decided out loud. Expect to see a bodyguard of about 10 for each of them. I'll alert the men, my lord, he promised. That shaman had me almost worried. I'd seen him during my field scrying, or at least glimpsed the spark of his shard of Irianite. The dead god had been giving out robin egg-sized chunks of Irianite to the goblin shamans, like it was candy, in preparation for the war. And while they were undoubtedly potent devices, the shamans themselves were very limited in the kinds of spells they could cast. Erinite gave you power.
Fucking sick as shit.
Or the technical tools to use it effectively. It's a matter of sophistication. Technically speaking, we human, imperially trained war magi were miles ahead of them in technique. It might prove to be one of our only real advantages. I sighed and forced myself to quit scoring. I had to pee and I had to fight. And the sooner I did
That's
one
awesome.
or the other, the sooner I could get to the other one. I led Traveller down the hill about halfway and stopped to talk to a group of archers who were happily lobbing arrows into their midst in the hopes that they would strike something, or at least make the goblins keep their heads down. They did so with impunity, because the range of the average human bow was twice that of the short bows and slings that the Gavani carried. But they might want those arrows later, when they had better targets, so I ordered them to stop while I looked around. From Traveller's back, I could see where the Gavani were holding up. They had dug into a narrow space at the north edge of the wood, between a massive boulder and small hillock, next to a field full of half-ripened wheat that would never be harvested. They had felled a few trees and created a makeshift bulwark to discourage us from hitting them from their flanks. Their leader must have been one of the bright ones. I called the
Yeah, it's a small taxidermy thing.
spell that can do a lot of things. But right now I used it to view the goblins
How did I
as if
do
they
a
were but
small
a few
one?
yards from me. There were at least 600 of them, and they were armed and arrayed as I'd come to expect of goblin raiders. A leather belt or weapon harness, a leather kilt or breechcloth, a smattering of captured armor, some of it improvised from captured pieces, some colourful tribal jewellery, iron-headed javelins, a sprinkling of short bows and slings, and everyone carried a knife, and one of those traditional iron-headed clubs they enjoyed bashing our brains out with so much. They were outnumbered, out-armed, and in the blinding light of the sun on the wrong side of a river from the bulk of their forces. They had no reinforcements within a day's brisk ride, so they were trapped. Better yet, tactically speaking, they were prevented from moving in formation by the very defenses they'd erected. They were planning on waiting for us to attack, no doubt because they had their shaman telling them that with the dead god's blessing and the power of his witchstone, they were invincible against us. Blah, blah, grunt, growl, blah. He might have been right, too, under normal circumstances. A Gavani shaman with a witchstone would have made an assault by even 3,000 a dicey matter, if he knew his craft, and wasn't counted. I'd seen the goblin shaman
Take a break.
the night of that first attack on Boval
I'll
Vale.
probably get back on later.
In the vanguard
I'll
of the
yap at you.
invasion, severed his hand in battle and claimed
Peace
his
out,
witchstone, but
motherfucker.
not before he'd given me a very hard time with his primitive spellman.
Better
That was
lay
far from the
down.
last time. During the siege, I'd seen the power of the Gavani witchstones in all of their glory, as the dead god's minions used them to bind the horde together under his will. Even without the magical head and the giant ball of green amber, they could be formidable. And they did have a sophistication
Cool.
of assault.
Alright, Bill.
There were at least two
Peace
classes of
out.
shamans.